Welcome to episode 2 of Tales from the RGV. My name is Leonel Ramirez, but you can call me LJ, and this is my brother, Leopoldo Ramirez.
Hello, you can call me Polo. We're two brothers who wanted to start a video podcasting showcasing some of the Latino history, biculturalism, bilingualism, traditions, bilingual education, and food of the Rio Grande Valley.
So the Rio Grande Valley encompasses several border towns in the southernmost tip of Texas. This is an area rich with culture that's a combination of American and Mexican. So this episode, we'll be speaking with a local artist.
The RGV has a rich history with Latino artists from all walks of life. We're going to discuss his motivations, how his art has been influenced by being bicultural and growing up bilingual. So first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. What is Teacher Tunes?
Yes, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. First of all, my journey began as any young, child venturing into wanting to be an artist. And so that developed me into a cartoonist, in which I had a lot of adventures. And then somewhere along the way, I ventured into the world of teaching. Well, in doing so, I found that there's a lot of stress in a lot of fields, but I thought I'd reverse the formula, and being an editorial cartoonist, instead of like, using art that would kind of cause emotions, and some of them were very strong, I thought, let me use the humor to kind of help ease the tension among that field. And so in doing so, when I first started teaching, this is my 30th year, somebody said in the teacher's lounge, somebody should put these stories into a book. And I thought, I'm going to start documenting stuff. And so I started to learn very quickly that the formula was, what I do is I take, I call it stress art. I observe people that are stressing out, and I see the humor in it. And later we laugh at it because a lot of us go through that universal world or experience, whether it's in Africa, Mexico, China, we all kind of face the same situations. And so I created a series called Teacher Tunes. And then one of my mascots is Miss Karaoke, which reminds me of my my first grade teacher, because she was like a big lady. I think she was German. She was a tall German lady. And I would believe it if they told me she was a wrestler by night, because she was huge. And so I use that character to kind of bring people in, and I rocked the boat a little bit with that, because she's made some statements. And then one time they called me in and they're like, well, you can't do that. I said, well, so what you're saying is it's okay for administrators to date students? I don't think that's right. They're like, no, that's not what we're saying. I was like, well, that's what you're defending. And well, just next time be careful. I said, well, that's not me. That was the puppet. And they're like, no, you're the puppet. I'm like, ma'am, if you're gonna call a meeting, you need to make sure my puppet's in the meeting. Because anyway, I threw her off with even more humor, and I basically defended the fact that hey, wait a minute, you're the one doing wrong. Because and what ended up happening was more stories came out of people that were doing wrong without even trying. Like, oh, okay. And it was kind of like playing Simon Says. You're like, oh, I messed up. But it's all in good humor. So I wrote a book. Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, but I do have a book that I call Teacher Tunes. And I did publish it on my 30th year of being a cartoonist, which I celebrated at the public library.
Wow.
And very cool.
I used to draw a lot, to the point where people would avoid me at work because I would draw them. Just giving you an example, when a kid leaves without permission to the restroom, within 3 seconds, I already have a poster that says missing, last seen trying to leave the classroom, went to the restroom, or is pretending to be in the library, but it's not. And so I do like a little wanted poster, and they get a kick out of it. They get the message. So I use a lot of humor to get across. As a department head, also, I've been a department head for 25 years, a little bit over. And I try to, ease things at work, because sometimes it's just a lot. It's overwhelming. And I think now it's even more overwhelming. But that's one of the projects that I've done. When I first started, I've done several. I've learned that kind of like being like Mr. Rogers. 1 minute I'm watching being a goldfish observer, next thing you're painting, next thing you're doing something. And that's how I run Smarty Cartoons, which is a title that started me in college. And so 1 minute I'm doing puppeteers and interviewing people at comic conventions. The next minute I'm doing models, little car models, toy models. The next minute I'm doing paintings or comic strips or graphic arts, things like that. And one of my more proud moments, and it may sound kind of humble, but I did the logo for a local store called Junior. So when I go to the store, I see my
Oh,
cartoon on
I've
a
seen it.
tortilla.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
yeah, yeah. That's cool.
That was you. Wow.
And so some people have like a master's degree. I'm like, well, I have a cartoon on a tortilla. So that's my that's one of my credentials.
That's
And
nice.
one of the fun things that has been an adventure was being able to reach and network with the actor Marlon Wayans of the Wayans brothers.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And
nice.
he was one of my quotes in my book. And long story short, we were going to work on teacher tunes actually. But long story short, I didn't end up signing because a Hollywood contract means you get 50% and I get 50%. But in Hollywood contracts, it means you get 50%, but I get 50% of zero. And so that is a number, and there is 50% of that, and it's still
Yeah.
zero. So I was told that was one of the smartest things I ever did. So ever since then, I started using teacher tunes as a motivational tool.
Yeah.
And then among that later came, or earlier than that came Rosendo Resendez, and he does the Raza Report with
Nice.
Rosendo Resendez. And at the end he goes, ¿Qué onda con eso? Raza. And so it's come to be a fun character that's where I involve my bilingual work.
Mhm.
I do speak Spanish. I wouldn't say too fluent, but I do speak it. I do understand it. It was my first language, but my
Yeah.
background is I grew up as a minister's son. So we grew up here in
Mhm.
Edinburgh, Texas, my
Nice.
kinder year. And then I went to El Paso, which was even more Mexican because, you know,
It's a border
the
town. Yeah.
yeah, the cheerleaders there had mustaches, so that's not more Mexican. And I'm kidding, of course. And actually, it was the lunch ladies, but no, I'm kidding. And then from there, I moved to Illinois, which is very American USA in the
Oh,
80s. I was the only Ramirez in the whole high school. I was the only Mexican in the whole neighborhood.
Wow.
And so it challenged my identity because I felt a little embarrassed, like, where are my
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
And so my escape was art because
How old were you when you were in Illinois?
I was at the age of 10.
10. Oh,
And
okay.
it was
So,
the
so when you're
80s.
growing up in the valley and then you go to Illinois, like how did you identify ethnically, and did that change as you moved around? You know?
It changed a lot because when I grew up in El Paso, it was very much, you know, I was within my Latino community and
Yeah, yeah.
all kinds of Mexican candy was amazing. And moving to Illinois, it was like an all white neighborhood. And,
Oh, wow.
you know, friends did step up and I did eventually make friends, but
Mhm.
I describe it like being on Star Trek. All of a sudden, I'm with people that are Chinese from countries
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. And like I said, I was the only Ramirez in the whole school. But what later helped was my father as a minister. His job was to make a church grow. That's why we went. We ended up getting there, and there was only 3 people in the church, and it was the same family. And when we left 184 members, and all of them were cultivated as a result of Vacation Bible School and literally going to the ghettos where our people lived, our raza lived, and very humble. I grew up very humble. I think that's why I get along with a lot of cultures in my school.
Mhm.
Whether you're a gangster, whether you're, you know, considered, you know, nobody talks to you, I can relate to them. I grew up with that crowd, and that's the people that I'm going to say we minister to, because I was literally knocking on doors, inviting people to Vacation Bible School. And so that humbled me as a Latino that embraced my culture even more. And I knew who I was and how beautiful that is and how beautiful that was now that I'm grown up. And it was just amazing and very humble to appreciate that. So now that I come from a family of my older sisters grew up even more humble because they grew up with having dresses made out of potato sacks when they were younger.
Wow.
And they all became teachers. And so they themselves also returned, you know, that kind of ministry as a teacher. They're all retired now. I'm the only one that's left, but I did complete my 30 years of teaching, but I'm going to wait a little bit more.
Sure.
I'm like, do I want this check or do I want this check? Okay, let me see. I still want to buy stuff. So I'm taking care of my health. That's one thing I also try and do. If you notice way back here, there's a doctor puppet.
Yeah.
And so I got into other stuff like cosplaying. There's my Green Lantern suit that I made because they didn't have my size. And a little bit of everything. I've learned that when I first started as a college artist, it wasn't that funny anymore because I was no longer in college. My friends were no longer in college. So that's when I ventured out to an idea like, for example, something called Only in the Valley, Teacher Tunes, Rasa Tunes, and it was fun because I could switch 1 minute doing something very Latino, the next minute doing something with the educational platform. And it opened me up as a person, as a character. I was no longer shy. And so it was fun. It was fun to represent my best and, to be liked by, for example, Marlon Wayans, which I was very in awe because I was like,
That's cool, man.
why do you like my work? It's like, I like your work. And so that says a lot because I put a lot of heart into it. And so that's my my story so far.
And I think it's great that you're producing this art in so many different mediums, but it's an art that people from the area can really relate to. I mean, maybe they're not seeing a lot of art that's Chicano related or Hispanic related. It's art that's more anglicized or more from up north. So that you're creating something that the students in this area can really see and relate to. Like everybody has an uncle like that. Everybody had a teacher like that. I think that's really great.
Yeah. So it's been fun to represent and know more people. And I first started off in Corpus Christi networking with the police department because they wanted a coloring book. So I quickly learned how to network with different agencies, entities, and not be shy. And the part I enjoy the most is when I make people laugh, because it helps. You can see the joy in them. It helps, with these days, you have a lot of, well, some of you probably know, when people walk down the hall, they walk very seriously, even with the mask. We can tell their body language. And so when you say, hey, I'm the teacher in the hallway that says, hey, I like those shoes, or hey, that's a nice hair, I love it. And the kid's face, they glow.
Yeah.
And you need positive, because a lot of the time, when I read the reports of students that come into my class, a lot of it is dialogue with teacher. Like, I tell them to get out of my class and I tell them to leave. And I'm like, these poor kids, they get that at home, and through humor, I use that channel to get my message out. And so, it's not always foolproof, but it works, because a lot of the time, if you're a Latino and you're the top gangster, you either have an uncle that's in jail or you've been in jail. But guess what they have to do? Because like one time they told me once, Mr. Ramirez, if you were in jail, what would you do? And I was like, I'd still teach art. Because a lot of my kids are there. So it's like, I still do the same thing. And so in a way, it's art and humor is a good way to connect to people of all kinds. And
who has influenced you, like artist wise? Who were you influenced when you were like growing up as a kid, artists?
Well, the El Paso influence, as a kid, one of my best friends as a kid, he had a father named Rosendo. And that's where I got the name Rosendo. And then I got the mustache from Magnum PI. And then I got the sideburns from my dad. My dad still had sideburns until he passed away in the 90s. And so then I thought, what would a Mexican, because I got to do the political cartoons in the newspaper for the Monitor.
Oh, cool.
And when I did, I got a lot of interviews, and I rocked the boat a lot, and there were some pretty tough issues. And in networking with reporters, I thought, what would a Mexican artist reporter look like? Because sometimes they would say, "Oh, my name is Herrera," and I'm like, "No, that's not Mexican." And I thought, let me do a real Mexican reporter. That would be hilarious. So especially with the chain, because I first started teaching in La Jolla, and every kid had their name.
We all taught in La Jolla.
Oh, there you go. You understand? Every kid had their name in gold, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And so Rosendo came about. So my and then of course Rosendo's dad, which was named Little Rosendo, had Rosendo as a dad. He was from Pachuca. And so he had that slick back hair, and everybody loved the cowboys, and he had the low rider car. And I thought that was one of my first influences to that later became Rosendo Resendez. And so that those elements put together, became Rosendo.
So you took from real world experience and just turned them into
because El Paso, I had the experience of, friends among friends. They had lowriders, and it was a thing. It was a lowrider culture in El Paso, and you're talking 75 to 79 that I was there. And so it was that part influenced me. So real people were my influence, and I remember getting into the car sideways, and of course I was little then. Now I don't think I can. I probably don't even fit in the trunk. But anyway, the main thing is that culture helped me out. Artist wise, just everybody. I'm a sponge. I admire a lot of artists. If they capture my attention, I'll buy their book, I'll buy their cover. But a little bit from music. I'm big on music. I'm not good at memory, but I do love music. And back then, keep in mind, I'm the generation that came from the people that love to shop album covers. Kids don't know that. Nowadays, they're like, let me pick a file and let me just push, download. And back then, I'm sure you and I would go to stores and the artwork was calling my name. Very vibrant work. And so I think that influences my work because my work is very vibrant, very almost like when you go to a panaderia or a mercado. I like making my work very, very strong, very colorful. But artist-wise, not anything, not anybody specific, but more of a culture. The culture itself was my influence. Yeah.
So
Very cool.
when did you come back to the RGV, I guess, and how did you come back?
Once again, because my father was a pastor, we moved. Well, I did kinder in Edinburgh, 75, 76. We moved to El Paso from like 75 to 79. And then I did 1st through 5th in El Paso, and I experienced beautiful experiences there. And from the 80s, from 79 to like 86, I went to Illinois, where we moved, and it was another experience. The 80s, amazing. My friend's father fixed TV, so for the first time we saw Michael Jackson on MTV and Thriller, and so he had to have cable. We didn't have cable, so it was fun to see that for the first time. Many firsts on television that were very good experiences. And then it wasn't until my senior year to establish residency, because my sisters stayed in the Valley. I came down in 86, 87, went to school in Corpus Christi, finished school in Corpus Christi, and I was gonna work for a producer, but the contract wasn't great there either. And I did listen to my mom, and I'm glad I did. And so I later took on the advice of my sister, who was a teacher at the time. All 4 of them were. And I became a teacher. I got into teaching. They said, we can always still do art. And La Jolla was the one that gave me the first opportunity. It was hard because it was a class of 46 kids in a portable, no supplies, by choice, because the other art teacher said, no, let's not ask for more, because they're gonna make us do more. And I'm like, what do you mean? I need stuff. And so it was a good experience. So the hardest part was my father passed away in my first year of teaching, and that really shook me, because I no longer wanted to do this. And my mom died 5 years ago, and it shook me again. And what was beautiful was I had already planted the seed of this culture that we call Smarty cartoons.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were my comeback. So I came back to the Valley in 86, and I've been here since, and I've established myself as a teacher, and I still travel to back home just to, enjoy my good childhood friends. And I go to Chicago, I go to Dallas, and I adventure off with letting him know who Rosendo Resendez is. And then later I broke away into actually dressing the part of a cosplayer and representing the Valley. And a lot of people have remember who Smarty Cartoons is, and so that's really nice. And so that's been good, because a lot of those people that became fans are the ones that later tell me, well, I became an artist because you helped me out, and later I worked for Disney. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I wanted to do that. And so it's fun to hear that. It's fun to hear kids that later became adults, and they saw something. Somebody said the other day, not too long ago, that they were inspired by my teaching, because they're like, you seem like you enjoy what you're doing, and I want to have that mentality. And I'm like, okay. I go, well, I was just pretending. No, I'm just kidding. And so it's been fun. It's been a good adventure. I stayed in teaching. I was going to be, I wanted to be an administrator, but that's when there was a fork in the road, and I was like, okay, there's a chance to be a cartoonist for the newspaper. I've always wanted that. And so I took that. I did it for like 12 years, and it's been a good adventure. We rocked the boat here and there, and it's been an adventure. Everything has never been the same. I've always done different things like editorial cartooning, designing things for a poster, a business, interviewing people with puppets, and it brings out the kid in them. And I've learned to be a performer. I've learned to be a motivational speaker, and I've learned to try to be the best as a teacher that I can be. And that's very rewarding. That's why I go back every day with a smile as much as I can. And when I'm not smiling, I've gotten letters, whether it's because of a death in the family, that the kids, they're like, you still give us your best. And I'm like, man, how do they know? As you all know, kids can read us, our
Oh,
vibe.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to have chosen that path, and it's been fun. This is my little office, my creative moment, a lot of people that I've met, and trying to represent people that I grew up with as best I can. So never ashamed of who I am. Definitely defending the Latino culture and
Yes.
motivating kids. We need motivation nowadays. So so yeah, and that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with my stand as a cartoonist. This is my 30th year as a teacher, my 35th as a Smarty Cartoons, which started off as a comic strip, and this is the original character that it started off with. It was just a kid with a pompadour haircut that was a college student. And the humor revolved around like being silly, and my friends were like, "You're such a smart ass." I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna use that name."
Yeah.
And so now I get paid to be a smart ass, so that's okay. That's
How
the
do you
name.
feel about art and bilingualism and just here in the RGV? Like, how do you feel this art, influences kids? Especially with our border students, our Latino kids here. How do you feel that art can influence them and help them, in life?
I think a lot of the things that I teach goes beyond the whole just cartoony. I teach them essential skills that will tie into their world. For example, about color theory. Eventually you're going to use color somewhere in your life. They're like, no, I don't need art. I'm like, well, you go to a quinceañera, somebody had to design the cake, somebody had to design the dress. I said a lot of the things in the medical field, they have to study diagrams. I said, because of those artists, because of those inventors, we're grateful that we can survive and do more. And also with just inventions, the creative mind contributes to a lot of things we use. And I said, you guys are on the phone, 24/7. And what are you looking at? A lot of the little artwork, and some of you like to play games. I said, but a lot of those things are lifesavers. And I do teach them skills like sewing, little things like sewing.
Really? Wow.
And we usually do like a little heart made out of a plushie. And so I try to cater to putting in the conversation as if there was an invisible parent or an administrator. What should I be telling the students? But in influencing the students, just trying to tell them, hey, life is going to be challenging, and you may not use art your whole life, but just remember that the lessons I'm going to share with you are going to be a way to calm you down.
Yeah.
I said, because one of my best choices is to do art while listening to music. And I said, you got to calm down. I said, look at the people that just, committed suicide. Something was not balanced, and it's difficult, but you shouldn't have to take that option. I said, there's a lot of ways to calm down, reset, and sometimes art will calm you down. And so you may need that later. You may influence somebody. You may sell something. You may become a photographer. And I have influenced kids by teaching them Photoshop. They later became a photographer, and they themselves, they're their own instructors as well. They become graphic artists. They've done a business. They've gone in. I do have students that I started with in La Jolla, that two of them that became art teachers.
Really? Wow.
So we came full circle. We got to meet at a comic convention, and they told me, like, I became an art teacher. I'm like, wow, why? No, I'm just kidding.
Who influenced you?
And so it's good to see that, to have them come full circle, and it's fun. It's fun because I tell them, now that I see the big picture, because I'm teaching at the point where I have the kids of my former students, and it's now I can easily say, guys, this is what's going to happen if you make this choice, or if you make this choice. Make the right choice. Because I'm telling you, I've seen people come up to me like, sir, I used to be one of your bad kids. Like, well, no wonder you look older than me. You look real travieso. No, I'm just kidding. And so I tell them with praise. I said, I'm very proud of you. I'm glad you made it this far. Look at your wonderful kids. Be an amazing parent. Enjoy them. And it's good. It's good. So as far as influencing them, I jokingly tell them that I'm one of the few teachers that when I do have an interview, I tell my boss, I said, ma'am, I'm going to come out in the news, but I'm not getting arrested. I'm just letting you know. And so when I do that, the kids have shared, very proudly, they're like, that's my teacher. And that's good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I know it's challenging as an art teacher. A lot of times you get the students that nobody wants. The students that
Exactly.
can't find a place anywhere. They don't belong in theater. They can't be in band. They've been kicked out of athletics. They've been kicked out of speech. They've been kicked out of everywhere.
Yes,
and they end up with the poor art teacher, and then your classes are usually packed, right? Everybody wants art.
Yeah.
So that's very admirable. I congratulate you, and it's hard. It's a hard job. And then to do art, but the cool thing is you can awaken a passion in a student, that knows where it may take them, and that's really cool.
Yeah. You hit it right in the nail. That is actually correct. Because, you're in the field as well, but yeah, that converted into my formula where my mindset is like, don't get scared. Don't be afraid to take on that audience, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with kids from the ghetto, kids that, weren't going to be I was not an A student. If I passed with a 70, I was like, yes, that was it. Let's move on. Let's move on. And I can relate to that. And of course, in fact, the other day I was at a store and they're like, are you an art teacher? And I'm like, yes. You're the one that told me to apply at Target, and I've been here since. So, okay, that's nice. And always supporting them, always in a positive way. You never know what they're going through. The other day I saw someone crying. I was like, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. But then they weren't okay because in their hands, pobrecita, they were all cut, as if they punched something. And I'm like, a simple word may have made a difference. A simple come by and talk or whatever you need. And so we've learned to take on. You're right, the ones that are, because when I first started, I was told to observe another teacher, but that teacher had 40 kids that she hand selected. I'm like, wait, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to embrace the impossible, and I've learned to not go by labels in the sense of like, oh, here comes that kid, or here comes.
Yeah.
And I've learned to embrace every moment that we have in the classroom. Now, as a more mature teacher, I give it my best. Humor works sometimes, and if not, let's sit and talk. Let me hear your story. And when they know that you listen, they'll respect you a little more. And it's been a while since I've had a defiant student, because they know that I'll give them my best. I'm staying after school, and you have to. Someone has to be the big. I became the teacher that I wanted to meet eventually, the artist that I wanted to meet eventually, and I think you need that. It's very hard to not be that person, and that's the way I was raised, and with humor, and then being the Green Lantern. I mean, my wife says those are not real muscles. I said, just got to believe, and it's been fun. The creative element is fun, and so I mean, I've gotten in trouble for drawing things. But it's like, hey, the truth hurts.
I wish we would have kept the arts longer, because we do it in elementary, and I taught elementary, I taught middle school, taught high school. Me and my brother both been in education a long time, but there's a creative outlet that we lose, and now you see it's kind of coming back with mental health, and now we have adult coloring books, and little things that are like, okay, we should have already had this outlet. Now we're seeing, what, we need this outlet. There's a lot of people that are stressed out. A lot of people have anxiety. There's nothing that makes you feel so good as when you create something, and I feel like that's something we overlook as we age out, the kids get older and they take them out of art, they take them out of music. And then it's only like the ones that are really interested in by high school, other kids have they haven't drawn a picture in years. They haven't colored anything. They haven't dealt with anything creatively. A lot of our top students, they go straight academics, and they're like, I'm just going to go to college and I'm not going to worry about, why would I need art? And then I think I feel like they're lacking something. There's a creative part of your brain that gets activated through art that makes you, I think, a smarter, better person, more creative.
Even in research, when they study about like people have Alzheimer's, one of the things they recall is when they hear music that they grew up with. And so me and music, I mean, I play music during the class, and you're welcome to hear your music. And then one time a kid said, "Sir, what are we listening to? Because I'm crying." I said, it's all the breakup songs from the 80s. And so I go, they're still powerful. So yeah, music, the arts, definitely a fun option to try out. Definitely. Yes.
So,
Of course, still supporting the academics by telling them,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
go to class, you know, you're
Yeah.
gonna be that 20-year-old freshman, you know. Yeah, go to
so
class.
we have one more question for you.
Mhm.
What makes the RGV a special place?
Oh man, aside from the chamoys and the botanas,
Yeah.
it's the people. I know one thing, that when we would leave the valley, because we would leave my sisters behind, they lived here. One of the things that my dad would say, and I solely agree, is the people. There's a sense of closeness, you know. When you hear someone passed away, it's usually somebody you know because you grew up with them. People are very giving, supportive, and that person's mom is like my mom because I grew up with her, and there's a sense of close knit family element. And not only that, but we welcome other cultures too. I mean, whether it's the Indian culture, the African American culture, we're a little melting pot. We may not see it, but we are. And it's beautiful to see that, you know, among some of the programs, some of the schools, you know, people that they name certain things after in the history that's been here. But it makes it very unique, I think, because of the people, that mindset, that you're from Edinburgh, you're from far, you know, and we
Yeah.
have a sense of pride, and oh, we're the Bears or we're the Bobcats. And
Yeah.
it's just, we still, you know, some people still wear their Letterman jacket at age 40. That's
And the ring, the high school ring.
and so there's a sense of attachment to culture.
Nice.
When people grow up, you know, they say, "Oh, you're Mexican," and you see the videos like, "I'm not even Mexican, I'm from Honduras," and they think that the world is just this and this, and it's
Yeah.
not. It's more people, yeah.
Of course.
And so I love it. The environment's good, it's safe, and if not, well, you know, that's why we have Rosendo
Yes.
to say "¿Qué onda con eso?" and you know, we still have the people that, you know, they still keep the chancla on the side and keep you in line. And yeah, so it's been a good culture. I've stayed here. I've loved it. It's what's what my parents enjoyed, and that's why my sisters have been here pretty much all of their adult life as well. And they taught here, they retired here, and so I'll probably end up doing the same as well. So
Yeah.
but it's been fun, and I plan to continue once things open up, you know, more of the motivational speaking,
Yeah.
and then just do more fun stuff as much as I can, as long as God gives me my health and, you know, ability to move, then I'll be
Yeah.
able to do more. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing your future work, and I think it's great what you're doing. You're making art that's relative to the area we live in, and that's not something that a lot of people are doing. It's just awesome, and I want to really thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and hopefully we see you soon.
Yes, thank you very much. And as a thank you, I'm going to give you both my Teacher Tunes book, so you can, when you're
Awesome.
having a hard day, you can laugh and go, "Oh, I'm this guy."
Can you sign it?
Yes, I'll
Yes,
sign it, definitely.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for your time, Mr.
Thank
Ramirez.
you.
Really appreciate it. I love to talk to different artists and people from the Valley. You know, your story is very unique. You have a lot of talent, and you know, more than anything, just you going in day to day and helping students, that means a lot, because not everybody does that. And then, you know, you won't know how much of a difference you make until way later on, when you see an adult child and they remember who you are, and they're like, you know what, you helped change my life for the better, you know.
Yes,
So,
and I do credit a lot of teachers that did that. One in particular, a science teacher, she wanted me to be a leader of a group, and I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm not that smart. I can draw," and she believed in me. And the reason that I am a department head, I credit her, because she believed in me, and I didn't believe in me that far. And now that I'm a leader to more teachers, and they like it, that says a lot. But that lady instilled in me the seed of believing yourself, you can do it. And I'm going to pass that on as much as I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We'll see you. Thank you.
Okay, we can log off?
Yeah. That was another great episode with Ramon Ramirez. Very talented artist, very talented speaker. He does it in the classroom. He's a motivational speaker. He does cartoons. He's the real deal. It was a great interview. I felt like we got a lot of information from him, and it's just nice to meet a person who's out there trying his best to help people as much as he can.
You know, I just want to point out that although we have the same last name, my brother and I are not related to Ramon Ramirez.
Yes.
But what he's doing is great. And he mentioned one really important thing in education, being a teacher, is you got to build those relationships with the students. You know, if they like you, if they respect you, if they look up to you, then they're going to work for you. When they do that, it really cuts down on any discipline issues you're going to have. So I'm really happy we got to talk to Ramon Ramirez, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do in the future. I look forward to seeing that.
Me too. Awesome. Great job.
That's all great. Thanks, guys. We'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.